Hello and welcome. In today's video we are talking all about eyeshadow palettes. It is the fourth quarter roundup for 2022, the last quarter of the year, the palettes that I've tried for October, November, December. So if you like that kind of content, make sure you stay tuned. Hello my friends and welcome. In today's video, again, it's the end of the year. It is time to finish up strong with some palettes that I've tried this quarter for October, November, December of 2022 and give you my ranking of these palettes. So if you like the kind of content, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below, turn on all notifications. Otherwise, let's get right into the video. All right, so I'm gonna make this kind of quick. So again, this is just gonna be a quick overview of the palettes, no swatches, nothing like that, because I've already either reviewed these, talked more about them in other videos. So again, this is just a quick roundup, basically speed review, speed ranking of all the palettes that I tried this last quarter. So at the very bottom, unfortunately, I have Urban Decay, the Naked Robin Eisenberg palette collab, and I'm sure for some this worked really well. Not that it's a bad palette, but it just didn't stand out to me compared to the other palettes that I've tried this quarter. So that is at the bottom of the list, and I'll put the numbers in as we go for the palettes because I'll definitely tell you the wrong numbers if I try to tell you. So that is the one at the very bottom of the ranking though. So the next palette on the ranking, and again, if I didn't state that, I'm going to go least favorite palette to, top number one favorite palette. So in that order. So next on the list is LA Girl. I have the Dazzle All the Way palette. I usually really do like LA Girl, but this one really just didn't do it for me. These metallics were not like the usual metallics I'm used to from their palettes from this company. So I don't want to say it was a fail, but it definitely didn't spark any joy or do anything for me. So unfortunately, this is the second to the bottom of this ranking. So next we have Essence Welcome to Miami palette. Not a bad palette, but just really not a color story that I'm going to work with, that I'm going to run and jump for. So that is why it is third from the bottom, but not bad quality, just not a favorite color story for me. So next, I put these three kind of together, but it is the Disney Villains Essence collab palettes. I have the Evil Queen, which is my least favorite. This one really just didn't have the same quality as the other ones. Scar is kind of in the middle, had better quality than that one, but my favorite one is Ursula. This is my favorite of these three. This one had the best quality, the best color story to me. I should have just stuck with this one, but those are next on my list. Next, surprisingly, we have NARS. It's the Stargaze palette. I don't know, this just didn't do anything for me. And I have to say it is so hard to open. If you are anybody that doesn't have nails or just has difficulty opening things, you'll struggle with this. Every time I try to open it, I struggle. So anyways, but this just didn't do it for me. Last year's palette, the Climax palette, is one of my favorites of theirs, but this just did nothing for me. I didn't really care for the color story. The quality was okay. Just didn't spark anything in me. So next we have Lawless, the Winter Beach one. I was a little disappointed by this one. Last year's palette, the Glam one or whatever it was called, I really liked. This one though didn't really do anything for me. I didn't think these metallics were anything special. I'm not really into blues. This blue I haven't even used, but the green, they were just okay. Just didn't really do anything for me. It's not as good as the other ones I remember from them. So that's next on my list. This one I got a little bit later. I waited for a sale because I was not going to pay full price for it, but Too Faced Pumpkin Spice Second Slice. This one I just actually got a couple of weeks ago on a sale, like half off, and I think I even had some more points or something to use towards it, so I really got it for, virtually nothing, which is the only reason I bought it. But in tradition for these palettes every year, I did at least have to pick it up, see what I thought. I didn't think it was as bad as some people made it out to be, but it's definitely not one I would have paid full price. I don't think it's worth the price, but it's okay as far as quality. So next on my list is ColourPop and Disney's collab, the Hocus Pocus 2 palette. It's pretty overall, you know what I mean? But again, just being so themed and everything, there's really only, for most people, one time of the year that you're actually even going to use this, pull it out. Quality was not bad though. Just not a color story I'm going to reach for the most. So that's why it's further down on the list, but not bad. Next we have Violet Voss Rosé Party palette, and this one, it's actually better than I initially had thought. I found this on sale for like over half off or something like that on Sephora's website. Not a bad palette, but again, it's a very specific color story, and I honestly don't wear these kind of pinks all that often, but it is pretty. Not bad quality, just not a color story I reach for much. Next we have Sigma. We have the Warm Wishes palette, which is this year's holiday palette for them. It is a nice little palette, 6pan palette. As far as the tones though, it just looks a lot like their other palettes. So, I mean, it wasn't anything I really had to pick up, anything really special per se, but it's not a bad palette. It's actually pretty, but again, it's just nothing that I don't already have from them. So that's why it's a little further down, but still good quality. Next we have Wayne Goss. This is the Amber palette. Another pretty palette, but again, I'm just not as into like the red tones like that. Sometimes I just have to watch how those make my eyes look. They can make me look, you know, a little unhealthy, if you know what I mean. So sometimes I have to watch with those. But the only other thing I have is like there's so many mattes, and then there's only this one like topper shade and then kind of like a satin shade. So I just wish there was like a little bit more versatility in the palettes. So it's just not my favorite from Wayne Goss out of the ones I have. It's, yeah, so, but it's okay. Not bad quality, just not a favorite color story for me. Next we have Anastasia Beverly Hills. We have the Glam on the Go palette, or Glam to Go palette, I guess it's called. It's a cute little palette actually. Nice little 8pan palette, has a few metallics there, some mattes. Just a nice palette overall, but again, just compared to all the other palettes I have, I just couldn't put it any higher than this with all the other stuff I have. Not a bad palette, it just doesn't stand out compared to the ones that I have above this, so that's all. Next we have a palette by Half Cake called Pretty Precious. This is one Lauren May Beauty I saw her talk about, and so I did go ahead and pick it up. I picked it up on Amazon, so, but it's actually a nice little palette. I actually did use one of these to dupe Natasha Denona's Retro Glam palette, so check that video out. Not a bad palette overall, but like I said, just compared to some of these other ones I have above it, it just couldn't compare. So not a bad palette, not bad quality, and I actually do recommend it. It's nice. Next we have Flower Beauty. This is the E.T. palette. Now this one just got me with nostalgia. I grew up with E.T. It was one of my favorite movies growing up as a child, you know, so yeah. And love Drew Barrymore. So overall, it just got me. And the fact that it looks like a DVD case, you know what I mean? In a DVD, I just thought that was so cute. So yeah, nostalgia definitely kicked in with this one, not gonna lie. But actually not bad quality. It's actually a nice palette. Some of these are actually is like, I don't know if it's a duochrome or maybe even a multi-chrome that she put in here. Not bad quality. Yeah, so, but again, it's definitely a cooler tone color story if you don't mind that. But overall, I do like it. It's nice quality. And again, just nostalgic. So gotta love it. Next we have Lethal Cosmetics. It is the Teresa is Lethal palette. I did talk about this and her last year's palette, and not that the quality is bad, but the reason it's a little further down for me, just again, not a color story that I'm going to gravitate towards. It's just not, you know, not up there for me. The tones and the colors are kind of pretty, but for me, it's just hard to put look together with this because it just seems a little too jumbled for me, or a little too like, I don't know, I struggle with this kind of color story. So that's the only reason it's a little further down, but still good quality. Next on my list is Sigma of Beauty and the Alice in Wonderland Disney collab. It's a really pretty palette overall. It's just these kind of color stories, I just struggle a little bit with putting looks together. And like these greens right here, although they're very, very pretty, is not something that I'm normally going to wear. So again, it just makes it a little less user-friendly or a little less everyday for me to wear. So that's why it's a little bit further down. But the packaging and just the overall theme, I've got to give it to them. They did really, really good. It's just, again, unfortunately, just a color story that I'm not going to reach for as often. Next, we have Anastasia Beverly Hills. We have the Rose Metals palette. I went back and forth with this one. I did struggle. I mean, it's not a bad palette overall, but for me, with a lighter skin tone, this is definitely going to just generate like deeper, more sultry looks. So not something that I would just wear every day. But overall, actually not a bad palette. It's just not a color story that's really just designed for me. Right, next we have Tarte. We have the Tartelette Juicy palette. I got this one a little bit later. I know this has been out for a little while, but I finally picked it up. I think it was on sale, 30% off or so on Ulta's website. And again, I still had some points and stuff to use. So I did go ahead and grab it. It's not a bad palette overall, but again, it's just, you know, very pink. So if you like pink tones, that kind of thing, I think you would enjoy this. But overall, I just don't gravitate towards pinks as much as I do other colors. So, but still not a bad palette. Next, we have one that kind of surprised me too. I have Beauty Bakery, the Chosen Bun. I love their play on words and the food themes. It's so cute. Anyways, actually, this is a really nice palette. Not bad at all. The metallics are really nice. The mattes work well. Again, the only reason it's a little bit further down is just I just have so many palettes here, and all of them just are so good that, you know, you have to rank these somewhere. So not a bad palette at all. It just, again, does not top some of these ones I have above it. So that's the only reason it's further down. And the price point. I do feel like the price. I got this on sale, but regular price I would not have paid for this because I just feel like this company, I just think their prices are a little bit high for what they are. So that's my only, I would say, negative for their brand is just the price point. All right, next I have another Sigma Beauty palette, a Diana Saldana collab palette. This is actually really, really pretty, and for me, I actually appreciate that they put a few more shades in there instead of giving me another brush. I have so many brushes, so I know for some people that's like, you know what I mean? I'm sure they're looking forward to getting the brushes, but I have so many of them, and Sigma honestly is not one of my favorite for eyeshadow brushes. So for me, I'd much rather get more shadows. So it works for me. But overall, it's actually a really pretty color story. Probably the only one I wouldn't wear much is this blue. Just again, I'm not really into blues that much, but all these other colors I definitely wear, definitely enjoy, and just a nice palette overall, and I really like Sigma's quality, so can't go wrong with this one. All right, next I grouped these ones together too. Glam Light, the Michaela Pot 2 palettes. I have the smaller one and the larger one. So the larger one I've talked about recently when I did my collab video with Smithy Sony here on YouTube. I talked about how much I'd use this to put my looks together. This works really, really well if you are doing colorful looks. Even just using some of these to blend in with like multi-chromes, you know, other, you know, indie brand type shadows. I think it works really, really well, but it's actually really good quality. I really did enjoy this palette, but again, it's just not one that I'm going to reach for constantly. So again, why it's a little bit lower on the list, but really good quality. I did enjoy it, and very metallic, very metallic. And then the smaller 10 pan palette, I think is just a nice, if you don't want that larger palette or you like more specific colors, this is really a really nice palette too. So same quality, works really, really well. Definitely impressed with the quality of these. So definitely recommend those. Next on my list, I have Aether Beauty, which is a clean beauty brand off of Sephora. You can also get stuff right off of their website as well, but this is the Rose Quartz Crystal Palette. This has been in and out of stock so much on Sephora. I don't know, it must be very, very light, or they just don't keep very much stock, one or the other. It's a very pretty palette, but the reason it's a little bit lower on the list, it again is a very light palette. So if you're fair skinned or, you know, looking for a more just everyday lighter wearable eyeshadow look, I think the quality is really good. These metallics are really nice, and the mattes work really well, but again, it's just definitely a lighter color story, so I'd say more specific, which is why it's rated a little bit lower, but still really good. Again, anything from this point on is really good. It's just, again, I had to rate it somehow, so you know, this is the best I could rate it with all the ones I've tried, because there's a lot. Next, we have Huda Beauty's Empower palette. This is this year's launch for the holiday. This palette is actually really pretty. It's a really nice palette. But again, you're going to get a lot of the same type of looks with this palette. You know, there are a couple standout shades that I really liked, but overall, just again, it's one of those just more deep, sultry palettes that I'm really not going to get use out of every day. So that's the only reason it's a little bit lower, but it is good quality. I still stand by Rose Quartz palette from Huda Beauty is still my favorite of all from Huda Beauty, period. So next we have Beauty Bay, their brand, their, you know, like company brand. We have the Neutral palette, which is a cool toned all neutral palette. It's actually really pretty, really nice quality. Their metallics are actually really, really nice. The mattes work really well. I have nothing bad to say about it. It's a really good palette for the price too, especially. The only thing that's hard for me is the fact that Beauty Bay is overseas and takes a little bit more time to get to me. Also, I've just had a lot of my shipments that have arrived from Beauty Bay have either come with broken products or just look like they've been extremely banged up, like somebody just took no care to package and, you know what I mean, keep them safe. So it's more so just the overall experience that keeps me from buying that much from Beauty Bay. But their quality, I do like. Their brand is actually a really good eyeshadow brand. So next, I grouped these two together as well. I have What's Up Beauty, which is an indie brand. I have the Geodes palette, actually really pretty. A really nice palette. The metallics work really well. There's, I don't know if it's a multi-chrome or duochrome, but there are definitely some shifty shades in there as well. But really nice palettes actually. But I did group these two together with that and the Monsoon I have here as well. The only thing I would say, they're somewhat similar. I mean, there's some shades that are a little bit different, but you probably don't need both palettes, quite honestly. I would recommend, you know, finding whichever color story speaks to you a little bit more and get one or the other, unless, like mine, I got on a really good sale, which is why I got both. Not bad palettes, but again, I think they look somewhat similar, so I don't think you need both. Next, I grouped these together as well. I have the Tarte, the Duo palettes that came out for holiday. We have the Glamour palette, which is a little bit cooler tone palette. Actually, really pretty palette. This would be really good for the holiday, and I think I did have this in my holiday palette recommendations for this year, but a really good palette. And then I have the one that I actually liked a little bit more just based on the looks I put together, the Gilded palette. So these did come as a set. I don't know if they're still available at this point, you know, being after, you know, the holidays, whatever, but they're really nice palettes overall. I do enjoy these. So next we have Nomad Cosmetics, the Santa's Village palette. This unfortunately was limited edition, so I believe it's sold out. I don't think you can get this anymore, but I did make a look with this. It was in my holiday recommendations palettes video, so definitely check that out. But overall, it's just a really pretty palette. These topper shades are really pretty. Like, and when I put the look together, at first I was like, but the more I looked at it and the more I kept looking, I was like, gosh, that's really pretty. They have a really pretty effect. So I do recommend if you have this palette or see something similar to it, it actually is a really nice palette, and definitely recommend. And definitely recommend checking out their brand too. So another indie brand. All right, next I grouped these two together too. I'm not quite sure why I put them together necessarily, but I have ColourPop. I have this Troublemaker palette, which actually really surprised me. I really like this palette. The colors in here are really pretty. The looks I put together with this, I really enjoyed. Just a really pretty palette overall. I actually really enjoyed this one. But I did put it with the Not a Box of Chocolates palette, which I really like as well. If you're looking for like a nice neutral palette, everyday type of palette, but maybe a little bit deeper, so if you like medium skin, or again if you just like, you know, a little bit deeper looks, I think you'd really enjoy this. It's a really good quality palette though. I've really enjoyed both of these palettes from ColourPop and recommend them both. Next, we have another indie brand, Ensley Rain Cosmetics. I do have a code with them, which I'll put across the screen, but it's just Coralie Rose. It saves you 10% if you have any interest in checking out their brand. It is affiliated, so I make a small commission, so I do appreciate if you use it. But again, most of these indie brands, you will find codes for most of them, so definitely use somebody's code if you don't use mine to get a percentage off. So this is the Harvest Moon palette, really pretty palette. The only thing I was a little bit, I guess, surprised about or didn't realize online that you have a couple of glitter shadows here, and they are kind of messy. Like, I mean, they have a base to them, but that glitter is pretty intense. The only other thing I found too is a little bit of creasing with this palette, so I think that's the only reason it's a little bit lower. The colors are really pretty though, and then like a couple of them ended up being a little similar too, like when you put them on the eyes, so that's the only reason I rated them a little bit lower too. But still a good quality palette. Can't say anything else, you know, about it that's negative. But again, I think it just surprised me. I didn't realize there were a couple of glitter shadows in there, but overall, still a really good company. Enjoy the palettes I've tried so far, and I do recommend them. Next, I grouped these together as well. Another indie brand, we have MBA Cosmetics. I have the Vintage palette. Really pretty palette. I actually really enjoyed this one. I think this is really nice. I like the color story. Just gives me that kind of like retro feel too, kind of like Natasha Denona's Retro Glam, but a little bit different take on it. So I really did enjoy this palette. I think it's really pretty, really good quality. And then I also got this one, which is more like single shadows, but they were grouped together, called Toil and Trouble. It was on sale at the time I bought that one. But just a bunch of like duochrome, multi-chrome shadows in here that work really well in combination with that Vintage palette. So recommend checking that brand out as well if you haven't tried them yet. All right, next here we have Glaminatrix Cosmetics, another indie brand. You know, these indie brands are going to be higher up. This is the Nocturnal palette. Really pretty palette. The only reason it's a little bit further down, some of these colors just aren't colors that I'm really going to wear. I'm not really into these blues. That's just way too bright for me. Again, that's the only thing that gets me, but I do really enjoy their multi-chromes, duochromes, like the, you know, the special shades are really pretty, but some of the color stories, they just don't speak to me. So, but still really good quality, and I definitely recommend you check them out. The other thing to keep in mind as well is the shipping. If you ship to the US, it's $20. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind, and they're not the cheapest of palettes either, so you're gonna pay a good penny if you do buy from their brand, but I still do recommend it's really good quality. So all right, next we have Pat McGrath. This is the Mothership Mega, the Celestial Nirvana palette from this year for this holiday. It is a pretty palette. The only reason I ranked it a little bit lower, the color story didn't speak to me as much as last year's, and I just like the way they laid out last year's a little bit better. To me, I'd rather have more of the metallic shades. Give me a couple of mattes, maybe 3 or 4 mattes, and the rest metallics. That way I can still make a few different looks, but the metallics are really what, you know, make or break for me. So this one just, I don't know, it just didn't do it as much for me. And like this green, I'm not really going to wear as much. This red, definitely I'm not going to wear. You know what I mean? I don't think they needed both of those there. So I don't know. I just wasn't as impressed with this palette as last year, so that's what's a little bit further down on my list. Next on my list, we have another indie brand, Sugar Drizzle Polish. I have the Trick or Treat palette, which was this year's holiday, like Halloween palette. Really pretty palette. Now, the only reason I rank this a little bit lower as well, again, it's just a very specific color story. You know, you're going to get a lot of deeper, darker looks. Just not something I'm going to wear every day, but it's really pretty. And this shade right here called Raptor Candy, that shade is intense. It's beautiful shade. That shift in there, it's a multi-chrome, that shift in there is amazing. But really good quality overall. Just again, not a color story I'm going to reach for as much. Next, we have Blend Bunny Cosmetics, another indie brand. I have the All Done Up palette. This one is really pretty too, but I still like the Dollhouse palette better for my liking. These tones are just a little bit, I mean, they're grungy, which I do like a muted grungy tone. But again, this is just a little bit more specific for me, not tones that I'm going to wear as much. So, but these shades down here at the bottom are just beautiful. But the other thing too, the Dollhouse palette is a little bit bigger. You do get more shades. Just overall, I just like the look of that one better, but still really good quality. So if you like these shades, this color story, you definitely can't go wrong with this palette. It is really good quality. Next, we have one of my favorite indie brands, Simply Posh Cosmetics, the Genuine Gems palette. The reason this one's just ranked a little bit lower is based on color story. Again, it's just not one that I'm going to reach for, you know, consistently. Beautiful looks, beautiful colors, great quality. I really do enjoy Simply Posh Cosmetics overall. But again, out of the palettes that I have of theirs, this one's just a little bit lower, just not one that I'm going to gravitate towards as much. So that's why it's a little bit lower. But still, again, everything from this point on, I truly enjoyed. So, but I had to rank it somehow. So next, I have Moira Cosmetics. I was really highly surprised and impressed with these. I have the Endless Moonlight palette, which out of the two is further down. I mean, I still really like it, but the other one I just like more. Really pretty. If you're like it a little bit more into cooler tones, like neutral to cool, I think you'd really enjoy this palette. It's so pretty. These metallics are really good quality. Mattes really work well. I'm really highly impressed with Moira Cosmetics. So I'm definitely gonna have to try out more things from them this coming up year, but so far I've liked what I've tried. Next we have I'm Falling For You, which again, this one just I think is so pretty. Such a pretty color story. You know, I love my purples, but again, you still have some neutral tones in there to wear. It's just a really pretty palette, and these metallics are really nice. So I was highly impressed with this, and you know, like I said, pleasantly surprised. I didn't really, you know, think I was going to get too much out of it, but it really surprised me. It was a good surprise. All right, and then from this point on, I mean, I like all of these. I just had to rank them somehow. So, you know, had to rank them somewhere. So next we have Gourmande Girls, the Spooked palette. This would have been in the previous ranking, but again, just the timing of when I got it, you know, it was like, you know, these are October, November, and December, so just kind of how it fell in here. But yeah, really pretty palette. I was truly impressed and just surprised by how good the quality this is. The color story, again, is just a little bit out of my comfort zone, but again, it's still something I could work with, and when I made the look, it was so pretty. These multi-chromes in here, I was really highly impressed with the quality. So yeah, this was really a nice surprise for me this year. So I will definitely be checking out more from Gourmande Girls in the coming up year for sure. This one surprised me. At first, I was like, I don't know, because I heard mixed reviews, but Makeup by Mario Ethereal Eyes palette, I actually really enjoyed this palette. I had nothing but good experience with this so far. I've worn it a few times now, and again, you know, a lot of the looks are going to look similar, but I don't mind that because it's just a good everyday palette for me. And these topper shades here in the middle, although they're a little bit flaky and drier, the effect they give is still really nice. I've had nothing but good luck with this, and I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, so I was glad to have picked it up. I got it on sale, of course, but I don't know if I would have paid full price, but at the price I got it, I was happy with it. I'm glad I have it. All right, next on my list, I have the Pat McGrath 5 p.m. palettes that came out for this holiday. The further one down is Nude Allure. Really pretty palette, but again, out of the two, I just really like this Bronze Bliss. This one is my favorite out of the two, and that's actually what I'm wearing today. And again, if you want, you know, something for New Year's, again, I don't know when this video is going to come out, so I don't know pre or post New Year's, but anyways, this would be a really good New Year's Eve palette for sure. Really good quality, but I actually like these more than I like the big mega palette, so there you go. Next, another indie brand, we have Adept Cosmetics, the Minka palette. Really pretty palette. Now, this isn't going to be for everybody. I mean, it's very glitzy glam, metallic, foiled, like these shades. Yeah, they're intense. They're very intense. But for me, I've enjoyed the quality of this. Other than the little bit of staining that I've mentioned before, I've had a really good experience with this palette and just really enjoy Adept Cosmetics overall. Again, another brand I have a code with, so if you want to check them out, it's just, again, I'll put it across the screen, Coralie Rose. It'll save you, I believe, 10% as well. Another affiliated code, so I do make a small commission if you use it and appreciate it if you do. But again, if you don't use my code, use somebody's, because you will definitely get a percentage off, and I, you know, would if you could. So there you go. All right, next, my girl, Natasha Denona. We have the Retro Glam palette. Beautiful palette. I really do enjoy this palette. I've made some beautiful looks with it. The quality is really good. Did a whole review on this, so I'll link that in here as well. But overall, just a really good palette. You know, there are a few that are just above it just because overall experience, color story, whatever, I just enjoyed it a little bit more, but still, I mean, this is in my top, you know, within the top 10. So definitely still a great palette, and so glad I have it, and I've really enjoyed it. So highly recommend. Another bunch that I grouped together here, I have Gloss Gods, which is another indie brand. I've been highly impressed with this brand. It's newer to me. I've just discovered it in the last few months, but man, everything I've tried so far, I've truly enjoyed. So we have the new Neutrals palette, which is probably my least favorite of these three, but a beautiful everyday, but like with a little bit of, you know, extra little something to it. So very glam, very, you know, glitzy and just metallic and just really good quality. So I've really enjoyed the mattes and metallics in these palettes, but really highly recommend. We have the Vintage Glam, which I'm kind of on the fence between this one and the other one being my favorites, but this was originally my favorite palette. I love the color story in here. The shadows perform amazingly, beautiful, great quality, just all the glitz and glam you could want. And then close, like, these might be tied, Smoke and Mirrors. Oh, this one too, just a beautiful color story. And again, like I said, this would be a beautiful one for New Year's as well. But I just love this color story, just speaks to me. It's so pretty. I love it. So great quality, highly recommend. Again, another overseas indie brand. So the shipping is a little bit expensive too. It's just under $20. But yeah, but still recommend trying out the brand if you get a chance. All right, my top two we have, which again, I grouped these together too, Oden's Eye. If you couldn't guess, we have the Christmas Eve, which I'm not sure, out of the two, I'm not sure which one I like better. It's hard to say because they're both great quality, but love this color story. You know, I love purples, a little bit more muted, you know, cool tones. It's such a pretty palette. So glad I was able to catch these while I was able to. And then I have the Merry Christmas palette. Another gorgeous one, more warm toned, beautiful palette. The metallics are beautiful, mattes perform well, just gorgeous. Just the whole attention to detail in both these palettes. You know, from the packaging to just the overall aesthetic, the color stories, you know what I mean? Just the theme of these, they just got it. They hit it out of the park with these. I don't even know what else to say, but I'm highly impressed. And then number one, if you couldn't guess, Natasha Denona, my dream palette. And this would have been in the third quarter roundup, but somehow this just totally slipped my radar because the timing of when I got it, I don't know, I had it somewhere, totally forgot to put it in my roundup. But I don't know if this would have been first place then or not, but it's definitely first place now. So yeah, but I really have enjoyed this palette. Like I said, she put a multi-chrome in here, which is a better one from what she's had before. I really enjoy this color story, just the overall aesthetic, the quality. I love Natasha Denona, what can I say? But I'm so glad to have this palette, and it is definitely number one as far as I'm concerned in this quarter roundup. So there you go. If you didn't know, now you know. Sure, you already knew if you know anything about me. So anyways. All right, so that is it for the fourth quarter and last quarter of 2022 palette roundup. Hope you enjoyed this series. If you did, definitely check out the third, second, and first quarters. I'm trying to remember if I did a first quarter, but I know I definitely did a second and third quarter. So definitely check those out. Give me your thoughts below. I'd love to hear from you. Hope you enjoyed this content. Let me know your favorites down below. What palettes have you tried this year? What are your favorites? What do you feel about these palettes? So let me know. Love to hear from you. Otherwise, if you do enjoy this content, please make sure you give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe down below. Turn on all notifications. Have an amazing day, and I do hope to see you in my next video. Bye! I have the Naked Rose. That is the bottom of the one. Next, we have Violet Voss Rose Party. Whatever, however you want to say it. This palette, though, let's do it again. Actually, a nice array of, finishes there, or not really finishes. Not a bad palette, just doesn't stand. Actually, a really pretty palette overall, but still just doesn't spark as much, like, I don't know. I don't want to say that. Never mind. Change that. God, my mouth is so dry, so dry, so dry. But anyways, this is the Harvest Moon palette. You know, you're gonna put a little penny in there if you, pay. Beautiful palette, beautiful, I'm sure you already know if you knew, hope you enjoyed this comment. Have an amazing hello. And hope you had a wonderful holiday. Can't believe it's already 2023 or about to be, if not yet. So, all right. See you guys next time. Bye. Take care.